Yeah, so I'm put it over here, Professor Oaks. I'm the director of EPICS, mechanical engineering grad from Purdue. And I got to join EPICS in my first semester, and it has really changed my trajectory. Also, like Andrew, while I didn't get to participate as a student, it changed the view that I've really had of engineering and of being a professor. Can we go to the next? Can I advance these?
No, I'll have to do it. And I just want to say, I think we thought we were live and we were not. So we'll be rehashing from the beginning. Sorry about that 10-minute delay there, everybody.
So the purpose of this is to give you an idea on what we're doing about EPICS, the grading. We'll be going over the safety, and I've probably deferred to some of you, and then I get an update on the resources and our policies over on the virus. Go ahead. So if you're looking at the philosophy, the idea of EPICS is we're balancing how we learn our skills that are going to make us better professionals. A big part is what we call professional preparation. So while EPICS is housed in the College of Engineering, we really looked at this as a multidisciplinary class, and students from a broad set of disciplines can learn the kinds of skills. We do this by working with community organizations. So we could talk about the community-based design. We're a design class. All of our designs are intended to work with a community partner and are intended to work on designs that will actually get used and not a theoretical thing. We're centered around long-term partnerships. EPICS has been cited globally for our ability to work with community partners over the long period of time for tangible impact. Go ahead. The teams that you're going to get on are vertically integrated, multidisciplinary. I've seen the teams that I teach. We have a host of disciplines from education, agriculture, technology, and across engineering and maybe others. There are first-year students, sophomores, juniors, seniors. Our intent is for us to have people at different points with different expertise. And the intent is for students to take the design experience over multiple semesters. So if you're new to EPICS, the idea is you're not going to finish everything in one semester, because often we're working on things that need more than a semester to work on. Now, if you have a project that can get finished this semester, please do that. But the intent is not that they always do that. Okay, next slide. As I said, the intent is, so all of our projects are situated in the community. So the community has identified something that they would not, and the community can be different types of partners, that they would not be able to do themselves. We do not charge any of our partners for what we do. And because we're designing something that they can't get anywhere else, it simulates what you're going to do out in industry. If we get 90% done, that's not complete. There are many companies and alums that have talked about how their experience in EPICS was one of the closest things to actually practicing their discipline. We want to provide a space that's safe for you to make mistakes. No one will get fired from EPICS. We try to structure the grading that if we make a mistake, identify it, and can identify appropriate corrective action. There may even be minimal impact on your grade. So the idea is let's take chances, let's gain experiences very often that we learn from our failures is even more effectively than the successes. Okay. The number of things that you can learn from EPICS are very large, and it's not like a traditional course where we're going to march through and tell you what you're going to learn in a specific week. EPICS, to a large degree, you will get out of what you put in. This gives you a feel for the breadth of things. You all will be assessed on design, and because we're designing for real people, there are many other things that will come out of this. Students, Andrew shared before we had the technical difficulties that he said his EPICS experience was transformational, and there's some students that have that. There are other students that say, yep, it's a class. And I really believe that difference is what you put into the course, both with your attitude and the work. Go ahead. Which is what, sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. It's really what you make of it. I'll tell you that I had an alum that did very, very well, was promoted very quickly, and it's a common thing that our graduates will tell us. And what they said is that the managers thought that he was smarter than his peers, but he said, no, I just made the mistakes my peers were making out in industry in EPICS, and had already made those. So he had, our goal is to help prepare you to become a leader, both in the profession that you're in, but also within your community and your society. You gonna pick this part up?
Yes, hi everybody. Sorry for the little technical difficulty there at the beginning. That was a user error by myself, so I apologize for that. Apparently the go live button is one button short of actually going live. So we were presenting away, so sorry for that. We're going to get back on track. We may go a little over time. We'll just keep going so that we have a good recording. If you have to jump off the call, feel free to do that. You can always catch the end on your own time through the recording. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the course works. My name is Andrew Pierce. I'm the Assistant Director for EPICS. Each section of this presentation is going to be presented by a different member of our staff with the intention of kind of giving you some idea who we are, since you may not see us as much in person as normal. So to get started, in the EPICS schedule, you may be a 1 or 2 credit hour student typically. There are a few exceptions of 3 credit hour students, but those are rare. And so there's a lot of commonality between the two, but you should understand the differences. So both sets of students will have a 2-hour lab, and that is the sort of core meeting or core part of your EPICS experience each week, where you're going to get mentorship from your TA and your advisor. So all of our instructors are called advisors. They're there to help coach and mentor you through your project, but the projects are very much student-led. So those will be your roles to take on. You're expected to work outside of the lab. So if you only work during that 2-hour span, you will not complete your project and you will not make much progress. So we expect a 1 credit hour student to work on average about 3.5 hours a week outside the lab, and a 2 credit student about 5 hours. Now, we don't have you clock in, clock out, things like that. What we expect to see is design progress commensurate with that amount of work. And then we also have something called PDHs, which are our professional development hours. And that replaces the traditional lecture component in EPICS, and is really intended to give you base information that you need to be successful, as well as technical knowledge or professional knowledge that you will need to advance your project. So those are really intended to buffer or support the project and you in your own development. Some important things to know this semester regarding the schedule, especially for you returning students. Some of these things are a little bit new. So our first week, this week, all of your team meetings are going to be remote only. And then starting next week, we're going to have in-class meetings begin, but we'll also have teams meetings with the students who are not coming to campus. And so those are hybrid meetings where you work together. That starts week 2. And in order to do those meetings, we're going to break you up into one project at a time. And that's why in the first week we're meeting remotely to make sure that you get placed on your project teams. So within EPICS, you have a team that is everybody that is working together, typically with a community partner. And then there are projects within that, which are sort of sub teams. So be aware of that first 2-week sequence of being remote first and then going to hybrid. The next really important thing to know is week 4, you'll have some documents you have to submit, one being your project plan or a Gantt chart. So that's gonna be your plan for the rest of the semester going forward, as well as your budget. So all the teams are gonna need some money to execute your projects, and you need to submit a budget to request that. The next really big one is gonna be week 6. You have your design review. That's gonna be a formal presentation. It will be held all remote this semester, and you're going to report on the progress that you've made to a group of volunteers, primarily from industry or the university. And then you'll get your midterm grades week 7. And then as we move forward, you're going to get into week 13. Unfortunately, with the academic calendar the way it is this semester, you're going to be thinking about transitioning to the end of the semester already on week 13. In advance of the Thanksgiving week move out, and that's November 23rd to 27th. We will have no class that week. So before you leave for Thanksgiving and that week, we want you to at least think about your design reviews, your final design reviews, which will be the week after Thanksgiving, the week of November 30th. So this schedule is on your team's Brightspace as well as on the EPICS website. So make sure you review that, and then week 15, you're going to submit all your final documentation for the semester. So we don't have regular homeworks or quizzes, things like that. What we have is this big project that you're going to work on, and these are the artifacts that you'll have to turn in each week. So just a little bit more about your lab meeting. Those are scheduled for 2 hours a week. You're probably not going to be in our conference room or the assigned room for your class for that 2 hours. And the reason for that is we cannot social distance you enough in those rooms if we have the entire team show up. So what we're going to do is break you up into project teams or something equivalent to that, and that will be up to your team advisor. And you're going to meet in those smaller groups sort of one at a time. So they're going to give you a block of time that they want you to come into the classroom and talk with them. If you're an on-campus student, if you're an off-campus student, you would call in during that same time. So the project manager for the team, that's sort of the lead overall student for the team, will stay in those project meetings with the advisor and the TA. And then the design lead, which is the lead for that individual project, will lead those meetings. So that's who you're going to meet with during that time. They'll give your TA and advisor a chance to ask you questions, to provide you with advice and feedback and coaching. And you're going to go through what we call progress, issues, and goals on most teams. So that's where you're going to talk about what went well this week, what didn't, and what are we doing on the week ahead. And they're going to give you some helpful suggestions to help your project move along. So during that first meeting, things you should expect, you're going to meet your team members. You'll probably do some kind of an icebreaker. You're going to do an overview of the projects. So that would be active projects on a returning team and any new ones that come up. If you're in a brand new team, then it'll be all new project challenges coming forward. You'll figure out what project you're going to be on. You'll determine team roles. So most teams will do this during week 1 as well. So that's who's going to be that project manager or design lead and those other leadership roles. And then you're going to plan a virtual visit to your project partner. So typically we load students up in Purdue 10-passenger vans and run you out to community partners. And we have a really good and rewarding time visiting them in person. That's just not going to be possible this semester. So definitely looking at a lot of virtual project partner visits. When you're in that time outside of lab, so that several hours a week that you're expected to work, that's when you're going to make the core of your progress on the project. So as you come up with a plan for the week during lab, you're going to execute that plan through the week. You certainly can still communicate with your TA and advisor, and recommend you doing that through Microsoft Teams. So we've built a Microsoft Teams page for every team to use for that purpose. And you're going to communicate with your project partner and work on your notebook and reflections. And those are the main things that we use, or two of the main things we use for your grading. A little bit more on the PDHs, or professional development hours. This meeting that you're in right now, or that you're watching after the fact, is your first PDH. So this is the Intro to EPICS PDH. Whether you're a new or returning student, we'd like you to do this one and count that as your first PDH. The others, if you're a first-time student, there are 5 required. This is the first. There are 3 more on the design process, and then the last one is on ethics and how to sort of work with a community partner. And those are some of the key things that we want every EPICS student to know before they go out into the community and work on these projects. So some of the core information. Once you've completed those 5, then everything else from there is elective and up to you. So if you're a first-time 1-credit EPICS student, those 5 required are all you have to do, and you're done with PDHs. If you are a returning student or a 2-credit student, we have a new system for reporting PDHs. So instead of taking attendance, at the end of week 2, you're going to submit a PDH plan where you're basically going to outline what PDHs do you intend to complete as the semester goes forward. And then at the end of the semester, you'll submit the PDH report where you're basically going to outline which PDHs you did and write a reflection on those and why they mattered. So that's going to replace a lot of the attendance taking that we've done in the past. It's mostly going to impact returning students, but first-time students do know that your PDHs are all in Brightspace. So you'll complete those all, other than this one, you'll complete them all there. So I think this is what I just went over in terms of those PDH plans, but we will post these slides so they're available if you need to go back to it. But this is all also on the website under PDHs. It's in Brightspace, and it'll be available to you throughout the semester. If you get confused, I encourage you to go onto Microsoft Teams, and you can communicate with us directly there. So a little bit about the team roles. So this is kind of the hierarchy of a team, how they work. So you have the lead student as the project manager. They're really responsible for making sure that the team is staying on time with their tasks, making sure that all the projects are running well. And then each of the excuse me, individual projects has a design leader or a design lead, excuse me, who's going to be the sort of lead decision maker for each project. And then the TA and advisor are really there to support you all in sort of a coaching role. Some of the other roles, we have the project manager and design leads that I've talked about. They're also project partner liaisons, and that is a position where you're going to be the main conduit of all information going back and forth to the community partner. So we don't want community partners getting emails from 20 different students on a team. So we try and filter all of those emails, phone calls, meeting times and that sort of thing through the project partner liaison. There's a financial officer. So I mentioned every team has to have a budget. That's going to be the person who manages the budget for the team and any purchase requests to make purchases. We have a communication officer. So they're going to maintain the team's website and their sort of outward presence from the university on the website, as well as on Twitter, and doing some student-to-student recruiting for the team. And then last but not least, the project archivist, and they're in charge of the team's documentation. That doesn't mean they're in charge of doing all the documentation, but they make sure that it's all complete and well organized as the team completes the documentation. So that's those roles, along with any other roles that your advisor may have specific to your team. So quick summary on my segment here. All team members are going to meet in lab or virtually every week. So if you're meeting virtually, whether you're an on-campus student or off-campus, if you choose to meet virtually, that's going to happen through Microsoft Teams, what we're meeting through now, and you will get an invite to that meeting from your TA. And so during the in-person labs, we're going to have AV equipment there so that you can participate in all those conversations virtually. So every student, whether you're in the conference room or outside, should be able to work together as seamlessly as we're able to do. you really have to work outside the lab for EPICS to be successful. So the students we see struggle semester after semester are the ones that think that 2-hour lab time is all they're going to do, and they're not going to put in any additional time. It really doesn't work. You have to complete your 5 PDHs per credit hour. That's a big deal. Make sure you understand that. And then be aware of all the leadership opportunities available to you. If you really want one and it doesn't work out this semester, just come back. They tend to be returning students, take a lot of the leadership positions. And so come back and those will be there for you. So with that, I'm going to hand it on to Tim Stree and Nuseba to talk about our grading procedures.
Hello everyone, I'm Nuseba and I'm a continuing lecturer in the EPICS program. I also manage senior design.
I'm Tim Stree. I'm also a continuing lecturer, and I, like Nuseba, we have, I think each of us also advisors for 7 of the teams.
Okay, so we will be covering grading. So the way you will be graded in EPICS will look differently than most courses. Most courses will have an accumulation of points that will represent your grade, while in EPICS we grade in a more holistic manner where we rate you in different areas, and it's very similar to industry performance appraisals. Your individual grade will reflect mastery of course outcomes, which I will cover on the next slide, but also completion of all required assignments, completion of your professional development hours that Andrew talked about, and as well as attendance. So your team meeting that meets on a weekly basis, that's a required team meeting. And just so that you guys are aware, for every unexcused absence, you do drop a letter grade. So make sure that if you do need to miss a class, that you are communicating that with your advisors and TAs. So your work in EPICS will be assessed based on the following 5 areas. The first one being work and accomplishments. So how are you progressing on your projects? What work are you doing? The design process. So what process are you applying the design process that we're teaching you towards the progression of your project? Teamwork and leadership. That's coming from how are you working with your teammates on your team? Leadership positions such as design lead and all those roles that Andrew touched on earlier. The 4th area being communication, so communication within your own teams, as well as informal presentations that are taking place on a weekly basis, as well as formal presentations of design reviews. And last but not least, critical thinking and reflections. Tim Stree will go more into detail about that, but there's a weekly assignment with reflection and critical thinking that we will also be assessing you on. So your work will be considered at both the project and individual level. Artifacts like the design notebook, your design notebooks, the design document will be collected for assessment. And I will pass it off now to Tim, and he will touch on those and give you guys more details about those in the next slides.
Okay, I think we got the wrong slide deck, but so for the, there's 2 parts to, can you go to the next slide? Okay. So to, like Nuseba said, you're graded on several different outcomes, including your work and accomplishments. So we're looking for your individual work and some evidence of the work that you've actually done. So we ask you to keep the design notebooks, and your notebook will be kept on Microsoft OneNote template that's in, it's already in your Microsoft Teams folder. So the purpose of the notebook is to keep evidence of your individual work. It's really, your engineering notebook is like a technical diary that you use in sequential form. So you go, as you go through the semester, your work, if it's sketches, research you've done, ideas and decision-making processes, interactions with your project partner, communications, contacts and resources, and meeting notes. Any of those things you would put in your work and accomplishment section of your design notebook. Not only is this useful for or used for grading, it's the really primary purpose of it is that this is a good skill to learn. As an engineer in industry, you'll find a real need to keep track of the work you're doing on your projects. A lot of times projects last for months or years sometimes, and you can't keep track of everything, remember everything that's going on. You may have multiple projects. So this is, as I see it, one of the skills you can gain from EPICS, but also the purpose of it also is to make your work more efficient, that you've got records of the work you've seen so you can go back and reference it, as well as it's accessible to the rest of your teammates on your team so they can also go and see the work you've done and collaborate with that. So as your notebooks are exams, they're not exams in the standpoint that we grade them specifically, but because we don't have exams, it's in EPICS. It's important to keep the documentation so we do see, have some evidence of what we've done. Okay. I'm going to go back to the reflections part of it. That's the other part that we ask you to do in the notebook. The reflections are also an individual document, so use that. That's part of your OneNote. You record this. So weekly, we're looking for some evidence of that you're doing some critical thinking, reflective thinking on what you're learning or what you're doing in the project. So it's not to be a record of just your achievements. Reflections are intended to keep connecting your experience in EPICS with your broader learning. We're looking for kind of three components in reflection, and you'll talk more of this in your team meetings, but you do a reflective observation. Then you connect that observation to a broader concept, and then also look at how can I use this concept in the future. You find in engineering and a lot of other industry, you know, your knowledge is based on the experiences you've had in the past. So this experiential learning is what we're trying to help develop using reflections. This year we're going to, normally we have one weekly written reflection for every individual for the week, or for the month, for the semester I should say. This time we're going to do some a little bit different, depending on what your team and your advisor agrees to. We will do some also in-class group discussions, and that will be reflective, so we can think about what we're doing in our projects, and then write a bit on that. Okay, and then the third thing, which is not really that we have also that we're looking at documentation, and this is really a team document, your project team, not an individual document, but we'll ask you to write a design document. If it's an ongoing project, there's already been one written from the previous semester, but these are living documents, so you update them according to where you're at in the project and what's changed. So it's basically a history of the project. The idea is that just the same as if you're new to the team, you can go look at the design document and find out what's been done in the past. Again, when the next team that comes on should be able to look at yours and easily see what's happened and what's the work and what's the reasoning for the work. This year we're going to have, these will be due before the design reviews, so week 5 and week 15 will be due for the design reviews. But we're also going to have an intermediate one at week 10, so you can keep updating as you go through and make progress on your design. Okay, Ms. Saban?
Yeah, so in summary, be sure that you're recording your work in your notebook on a weekly basis. You're going to be writing also a reflection every week. And again, just like Tim mentioned, the reflection may be an individual reflection or a group discussion, so just pay attention to your instructions from your advisor. Also make use of midterm feedback. So during midterm, I believe around week 6, you'll get a grade and feedback on where you're at, and it's really more of a snapshot of where you're at and what you need to improve. So make sure to take advantage of that feedback and apply it for the rest of the semester so that you're able to earn the grade that you want. And also, everyone can earn an A, but it must be earned. Like what was said before, you're really getting what you put in. So if you're working hard and putting in the effort, there's no reason not to get an A in this course.
Hi, I'm Pam Brown, and I'm the Senior Program Manager. Next, Andrew. And I'm going to talk a little bit about your labs. So you're probably new, and we have a prototyping lab, which is the whole big glassed-in area that you'll see in the ARMS 1098 area. We have a build lab, which is down in the basement in B103. We have a current computer lab, but it's currently not open due to students right now due to COVID. And we have 3D printing, and it's downstairs in the B103 once you have submitted all of the proper documentation. And you can do that with, if you need help with that, you can talk to Jorge, you can talk to the undergrad TAs, you can talk to your own TA. And if they cannot help you with it, they will know someone who can. And then lastly, we have the Bechtel Innovations Design Center, and it's open to students, but you must adhere to safety requirements. So you may want to check on what their safety requirements are before you go over there. Next. Our projects are supported by corporate sponsors. So we do have them in once in a while. We do sometimes have them when we have lunches, we have them in and you might get to meet them. But they really do support a lot of what our projects, the cost of our projects, as they go out into the community. As Dr. Oaks said, there is no charge to the community partners. So we have to have the corporate sponsorship, or we're grateful for it, I guess I should say. And then you'll find that we have lab supplies, and there are all sorts of lab supplies. Look around when you go in, make sure that you look around and view the room and see where the lab supplies and maybe where the screwdrivers and all kinds of things are. If you find that something that you need isn't there, report it to your UGTA or send a note to us and we'll get it stocked so that you will have what you need to build your project. And if you need to buy supplies, you're going to complete a purchase request form. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Or you can sometimes check out a credit card. Robin Twilliger is at the front desk, and she will help you with anything like that that you need to do. And you do not place online orders. We will place them for you and have them come to us, and they will be available in the front office. Next. I want to talk a little bit about the team budgets. When you start your team, each team is given $200 before you submit a budget, so that if you're a returning project or team and you know that you have something that you're ready to hit the ground running with, that you have some money that you can spend. You just have to submit a purchase request form. Next. And then you're going to request more money throughout the year for the rest of the year through the budget form. And typically budgets run $1,200 per year, but that's not always true because some of our teams, actually the computer teams or the software teams really do not spend that much money during the year. They don't spend hardly anything. Sometimes they do, but in general they don't. If you want to look at how you submit a budget form, it's on our webpage. It's under role specific and then financial officer. And it's due week 4. Those I will review. And we will, if we accept it, then the money will remain there and you can actually see how much money you've been given and how much money you've spent through the Teams page here. There's a budget link and you can look and see we update it once a month. Okay. So we also have grants that we can do, and these grants are from the Office of Engagement, and they make a real difference in our budget. So we would suggest that every team try to get a grant for your project. That's not always possible, and your advisor and your TA will tell you more about it, But when you hear the word grants, plus the fact that if you ever go someplace and they say, have you ever submitted a grant? You'll have that background of having submitted a grant, knowing how you do it, proposing a budget for it, and everything that has to do with the grant. So we encourage you to do a grant. And the information for grants is also found. In fact, there are 2 or 3 spaces out there where you can find about these grants, and they're under the role specific and the financial officer. You'll find that out there. Okay. So basically your web resources are going to be Brightspace. You can view the due dates. Andrew went over those, so you'll see all those out in Brightspace. You can submit assignments. You can also submit like your budget and everything will go through there. You can check your attendance. You can talk about your attendance. You can view it. Your TA and your advisor can view it, and you can view your grades. And then the other will be Microsoft Teams, and we're all learning on Teams, but it's been a great team collaboration tool. I really like it. I like the fact that we're all going to be using the same tool. It's really very successful that way. Lots of virtual meetings. You can have team meetings at midnight if that's what your team wants to do because you're doing it online. So it's fantastic. It has a huge amount of file storage and notebooks. You don't have to carry your notebook around. It's going to be right in here. Everything that you need is going to be in Microsoft Teams. And so we provide a lot of resources, but you must be proactive and seek them out. If you have or need help on any one of these things, feel free to, I will not be in the office, but you can contact me through Teams. You can contact me through email. And I've already talked to a lot of you on email, but I'm happy to talk to you on Teams. We can set up a video chat, whatever you'd like to do, and I'll help you with all these resources. So please make use of the online and the physical tools, the labs and Teams and every Brightspace and all of that. And all of us are here to help you, the TAs, the advisors, and the staff. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jorge Martinez, and I'm the lab manager, and I also work with Dr. Oaks in the coordinating with other universities, the EPICS program. You may have heard before, EPICS is not just limited to Purdue. There are other universities nationwide that has the same program. Next, please. We'll be talking about what are we doing to implement Protect Purdue guidelines. By now, you have heard this before. You probably know where to go to a website to understand what the Protect Purdue is. But in EPICS, what it means is for us to look for a safe place for you to come work and do your projects for our wonderful partners. There are 3-pronged plans, or there's a 3-pronged part to the plan. Number 1 is reducing the room capacity. Before, in other semesters, we have had rooms where capacity of 25 to 30 individuals. Will have to reduce those, or have been reduced to about 12 seats, and that's primarily to maintain that distance between physical distance between people. However, we also look at how to maintain the collaboration person to person. Typical classroom, you sit down kind of looking toward a wall with a whiteboard. In this particular case, we have sittings arranged so you have face-to-face collaboration, obviously with physical distance. That requires having additional personal protective equipment, which is the PPE in that. So we will be required to use not only the face mask, as you mentioned in Protect Purdue, but you will also have to use face shields. Using nitrile gloves is also encouraged. It's not required, but it is very strongly recommended. We're also providing additional cleaning. In the past, we've had undergrad teaching assistants that are present in the lab to help the students work in their project, and that has always been limited to the evenings or late afternoons. Right now, with the situation, we're trying to make sure that everything that is touch, tools, and things like that are common to many people are sanitized, are clean, and put back in circulation, and that requires having undergrad TAs that can provide that support to us, and also monitor how many people are in each room, and kindly asking people when we have to kind of separate and things like that. So you can expect some kind of supervision, but not hard supervision. It's actually other students like you, students at Purdue, students have been in EPICS before that understand the needs and are trying to kind of make the room or the space more safe for you and for everybody else. We're also balancing how many hours we have the lab open through evaluating when students come typically in the past to work in projects, and understanding a little bit the type of activities that are carried. We have been able to reduce the number of lab hours, but maintaining the main core of when people really come to work. So you can expect weekdays that are with lab availability from 8 o'clock in the morning through 8 o'clock in the night. We're spending additional time after 8 o'clock to clean the areas and get them ready for the next day. We have some time also during the weekend, primarily on Sunday evenings. But what we encourage the students is that limit the time to visit the lab, primarily for either when your lab is scheduled to meet, specifically for your lab time, your lab session, and when you have to work physically in there to work with your prototypes. So if you're coming and looking for a space just to meet with your partners, we encourage you to use the online tools like Teams to do that, and leave the space primarily for those that are fabricating and need the actual tools to working here safely. Safety is our primary purpose on this. Next. Talking about safety, there's a couple of things that you should know. First, when you're looking for materials or utilizing materials, there is what is called a safety data sheet. It provides information on what kind of hazard the material you might be exposed to using the materials. We encourage people to look at those before you start kind of ordering materials or starting using them if you're not familiar with them. Some of the pictograms in this slide shows what kind of information you may find in the safety data sheet. It might be like, for example, whether the material is flammable or not, whether it's corrosive, whether it's explosive, and depending on those, it will be important to know where to store the material. Obviously, materials that are flammable cannot be safely stored in the lockers that are provided for the student projects. Those have to go to a cabinet that is prepared for flammable materials and so forth. So make sure that you understand what the hazards are, not only for the materials, but also for the tools that you're utilizing, whether they're power tools or hand tools, and how you can be harmed. And if you don't know, just ask. I mean, we have undergrad TAs working during the time that the lab is open. You also have graduate TAs that are assigned to your particular project team, and you can kind of look at them and talk to them about the different hazards, or you can kind of come to our office and find us. We're also available through online media, so we're all connected to your project team, so you can also kind of find us in there. Again, just ask when you're in doubt. That's the best way for maintaining safety. Next, please. Emergency procedures. It's important to also understand what to do in the case of an emergency in our building. There are obviously situations where it might be a fire, it might be a tornado, it might be a chemical spill, and it's sometimes difficult to understand, should I evacuate or should I take cover? So, well, basically, it depends on really where you're listening to the alarm. If the alarm is being heard inside the building, it's probably telling you that you need to evacuate. And if you look at the diagram that is showing in the slide with a mark between arms and Armstrong and Bush, that is the place where you are asked to go with your team to congregate and make sure that whoever you are with, whether it's a design lead, your team members, or your TA or your advisor, make sure that they know that you safely left the building. Otherwise, typically emergency personnel may come to us if we know of somebody that might be trapped, and if you're not accounted for, then people might think that you're still in the building and the emergency personnel will have to go and look for you and you be endangering themselves. If on the other side, the alarm is heard on the outside of the building, then it's primarily telling you to go inside. Usually it is a safer place to go is the basement, but in some cases where there is a chemical spill, you may actually need to go to high ground because the material might be denser than air and you're going to low places. So it is important to sign up for Purdue alerts. The link is right there, purdue.edu/secure-purdue, and you might be able to kind of enlist so you can get via email or text information on what is happening at Purdue, and then you'll get the right information at the right time. One of the situations that is unfortunately getting more common is about attackers and what to do. Run, hide, and fight refers to what to do in the case of an emergency of that nature. If you can leave safely and you know where the attacker is, and you can evacuate, then the best alternative is doing that. If for some reason you see that the attacker is actually, or you hear the attacker close to you, hiding in places, hiding in the rooms, going on their table, turning the lights off is probably the best alternative. And when you can lock the doors, that would be better. There are going to be, unfortunate situations where the attacker might be too close and you're not going to be able to have time or have the opportunity to hide. In those cases, especially if there are multiple of you, you may overcome the attacker by fighting. Those are usually some things that are hard to talk about. These are situations that are not easy to talk about. It is important as a team to talk about these things. So when it happens, or if it happens, that you have a way to come out successfully. So more things into this. Make sure that there is you pay attention to all the Purdue Protect signage in the building, and follow the instructions as well as where traffic direction, which door to use to come in, which door to use to come out, and making sure that you use the safety personal protective equipment at all times. Next. Gaining access to the lab, it may be important to you too. There are specific times where you can use your Purdue ID card to get in. To do that, you should go to Purdue Passport. The link is in the screen, and go through a safety quiz, safety materials, safety quiz, and after that, you'll be able to get some access to that. Obviously, that access is going to be limited to the time that the hours of the lab is open. Again, Monday through Thursday, 8 o'clock through 8 o'clock in the night, 8 o'clock in the morning through 8 o'clock in the night. Friday, 8 o'clock through 6, and then Sunday evening from 6 to 8. The computer lab is actually closed, but going through the engineeringpurdue.edu ECN website, you can find instructions on how to remotely access the computers in that room and the software that is available to you in there. Also, there are some tools that are in the lab that can be checked out. Make sure that you talk with your TA or undergrad TA to get information on how to do that. Next.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. That is the end of our intro PDH today. I hope that gives you all a little bit of an idea of what to expect this semester. I do want to encourage you to open up Microsoft Teams, whether you download the application or open it in a browser. Go to the EPICS General Communication team, which you all should have access to, and post any questions you have in the frequently asked questions area. That way we can help spread that information to all of your fellow students this semester. Also want to remind you that if you are a first-time EPICS student, you need to go into your team Brightspace and complete the Intro to EPICS quiz, which is in the PDH section or PDH module within Brightspace to receive credit for this PDH, because we want to make sure that everybody has completed it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and contact us. All of our contact information for everybody that you met today is in the syllabus and on the website. So thank you all so much and have a good evening.